Thank you, and welcome to the Ways and Means meeting. Change date here to September the 8th. And we have an agenda in front of us. Commissioner Lassenheiser.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to amend the agenda, adding item number 11, Bank Intercounty State Grant Funding, and remove number 12. So add number 11 on your agenda and remove number 12.
Been moved for an amended agenda and supported by? Supported. Rogers. Questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Thank you. The minutes from October the 11th. Your wishes?
Move them.
Support. Lassenheiser, DeRocha. Questions, comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Thank you. Now is the first of two opportunities for limited public comment. This was your first, and there'll be another at the end of the meeting.
Hi, I'm Yvonne Ridge, for those of you that don't know me. And I had put in an application to serve on the Land Bank Board. And so I see it's on your agenda today, so I just wanted to come and speak briefly under public comment. I can't stay for the whole meeting. I have another meeting already scheduled in Lansing at 11, but I will stay as long as I can. But I just wanted to say, as far as my experience for the land bank, I did work here for Eaton County for 25 years. I served all 25 years in the controller's office doing various roles. Worked with grants, I was the accountant for several years, so I have a strong financial background in that. When I retired from Eaton County in 2000, I went into city manager role. So I did work in Albion with the Calhoun County Land Bank, doing environmental studies for different properties over there. I've worked directly with Treasurer Robinson on the land bank for a project that was in Eaton Rapids, and then sat in on a meeting for the projects that were approved to be done in Sunfield. So I'm very passionate about the land bank. I think it's a great asset for the county to have, and I would be very honored if you would consider me to serve on that board. Thank you.
Thank you, Yvonne. Anyone else? All right. Let's start the business with equalization. What you got for us, Tim?
It's that time of year, go over the tax rate report, which is the 4402 called the apportionment report. This is preliminary results. I haven't got all the final election information, but I'm not sure there's going to be actually any changes that affects us. The counties at the 5.2096 for allocated, and the extra voted was 4.3723. And then the townships, we did have quite a few changes with all the Headley rollbacks, so we reviewed those. I'm not going to go over every single one, but there was quite a few Headley rollbacks. And some of the city rates, I can just go over those real quick. It's 14.0860 for Charlotte. Eaton Rapids is 8.3289. Grand Ledge is 11.2506. Lansing is 19.44. City of Olivet is 14.2955. Potterville's 11.4098. I know that Grand Ledge Schools had a sinking fund that passed, but that was just a renewal, I had heard. And then the libraries had quite a few rollbacks. All the different, there's quite a few district libraries now, by the way, so we've been creating more 4029s for that, and that's quite a bit for us to analyze. Charlotte has a library district, Delta, Eaton Rapids, the Grand Ledge District, Mulligan, Potterville, Sunfield, and Windsor now has a library district as well. So it's getting quite a bit for us to follow in the local school districts as well. Is there any questions on this report?
Anyone?
Does mean to be moved to the full board, of course.
Latzenheiser Rogers, move this report to the full board. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tim. FOIA update.
So next is the update on the FOIA. We have not done this before, but we have a FOIA specialist who handles all FOIA requests for departments. We have found that it works very well, but I asked Grace Ramirez, who is a member of my office, to come in, talk a little bit about what she does and where we're at with the requests we get. Go ahead, Grace.
Hello, good morning, everyone. I've been here as the FOIA specialist for the county, for the departments that are in the courthouse, and some of those outside of the courthouse, 911 dispatch, animal control, and the youth facility. It'll be 3 years next month already. It's hard to believe it goes so quickly. As the FOIA specialist, I process not only requests from the public, insurance companies, attorneys, those are the largest group of clientele that submit FOIAs, but also government requests for records that want police reports, accident reports that contain lien information, those kinds of things, possibly a social number. So with that said, because I have to have knowledge of what needs to be redacted and what can be released to the public, I also process those kinds of requests. The feds, state departments, city, local governments, agencies, other prosecutor's office, and other law enforcement agencies as well. I thought you'd find it interesting to hear that from calendar year 2022 to 2023, there was a 70% increase in FOIA requests that came across my desk. The first 2 quarters of each calendar year are typically the highest FOIA request volume, so basically from January through June of each year. Based on the 2023 calendar year statistics, I billed over $14,600 in fees for FOIA records. And that was just in 2023. And with the increase that's constantly increasing each year, I expect that they would generate more revenue this after the 2024 stats come out. 96% of the FOIAs that I process are for our sheriff's office. They keep me nice and busy. That includes police reports, accident reports, body-wear camera footage, dash cam, surveillance, lab reports from blood test results, you name it. The county regularly receives also records from the media. Not only do I receive requests from local TV stations, newspapers, I actually receive requests from media's syndicates, crime syndicate shows from New York to California. And in fact, this year I've already received 2 from across the pond from the UK that request records. Most of those are interested, as you can imagine, for crime syndicate shows in some of our more highly publicized homicide cases. Robert Carabello, the Green case in 2011. So those are basically what their main interest is for these shows on investigation ID and you name it. Let's see here. The large majority of my requests, I think I'd already shared this, is from attorneys, law firms, and law firms and insurance companies, and of course the public. The release of information via FOIA is clearly impacted not only by the FOIA statute, but by also a lot of federal laws, state laws, HIPAA, the Social Security Act, the Crime Victims' Right Act, the Address Confidentiality Program Act. So in this role, you really need to stay up on what's happening, not only in state laws, but also federal, because I have to know what it is that can be released, what has to be redacted, and those things change. Not very often, but it's something that we have to be conscientious of. So it's not a report where you can just release a police report and let it go. That has a lot of information that must be redacted to protect not only victims, but also, your information to prevent fraud, identity theft, what have you. That's protected by federal and state statutes. Lastly, the most common complaint I receive from people that submit FOIAs, it's not a popular position. Believe me, I don't make a lot of friends in FOIA as far as the public. They're not happy, of course, that they receive records redacted, but it's the law. But their biggest complaint is that they can't pay online or with a credit card. Of course, it's very costly for that process. I think we looked into it. It's just, it doesn't warrant the cost with the volume of FOIA that we receive, for the county each year. Does anyone have any questions?
Grace, the credit card payment, we don't do that because of the fees associated.
Right.
If we made it where we had a convenience fee and added the 3% to the cost, I mean, wouldn't that be an option? We just have to make that our policy, right?
Yeah, that's a possibility. We did look at it when we expanded some of the record fees for the sheriff's office. Heidi was working with the treasurer's office, and I don't believe that was completed, was it, Grace?
To my knowledge.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we are still working on it, but yeah, it's difficult. Our office does not have a credit card machine, so we don't have the ability to process, so we would have to order that, give Grace access to it. Grace is a fully remote worker, and I have 2 in my office that are, and she's amazing at being remote.
Thank you.
I think it's something that should be considered, only because convenience is important to the public.
Definitely.
And, Grace, thank you for what you do. I'm surprised it's been 3 years, time flies. But, we didn't know we needed you until a while ago, when all of a sudden the FOIA requests got to be just so overwhelming. And, that was something that really didn't exist 10 years ago. I mean, the act may have existed, but there just was not a lot of FOIAs, and suddenly it's just exploded. And without you, it's staff time, and you're the one that fills that spot. And with body cams and all of that redaction that has to happen, it's not like you just take a black marker anymore and cover up a social security number. You've got to go into the software and you have to redact, and it's kind of an amazing amount of work that you need to do, and we appreciate it. And I hope that the public understands how much that has to happen. So, and it's for their benefit, for the most part.
Thank you. If I may just add another thing, 2 things actually. The thought of getting a credit card machine, that would, I believe, personally, it would overload the staff in the controller's office. My recommendation is that people try to pay online. They can do it in their own home, it's there, but the credit card machine, I'm not sure that's gonna solve anything. I know the girls in the records unit have to deal with that when people come up to the counter, and if there was a thought about how to best address it, may I suggest that we provide a process to do it online instead of a credit card machine in the controller's office. I believe you would be overwhelmed with the amount of payments. Secondly, when I was at LPD processing FOIAs for them, for the Lansing Police Department for 3 years, that was back in 2018. They were charging $10 for an accident report. It makes me crazy that we only charge $7. So I'm asking that you'll consider raising the fees so that we are at least, and I haven't checked recently to see if they've even raised their rate, but I'd like to see and recommend that we raise the rate for accident reports to meet all other, if we look into that, what other law enforcement agencies are charging. Because I'd like minimally $10.
I thought we did change that.
I have not been informed of that. I know that LexisNexis charges $10. They send in a payment, but Metropolitan Reporting, another outlet that insurance companies use to submit FOIAs to obtain police reports, those are still being charged $10 or $7 with Metro. And I know it's because they have a contract, so they probably have to let that expire. But to my knowledge, I have not ever been informed that the accident report rate has been raised to $10.
I thought we did, but I'll check.
Okay?
Okay.
Anything else? Any other questions? Thank you so much.
Thank you, Grace. Okay, Human Resources. Ben?
Good morning, everybody. Got bit of an agenda ahead of us in Human Resources. So we had the holdover of health insurance, so there will be a section where we talk about renewals. I'll quickly go through the positions update. We filled 4 positions. We have 12 posted, of which 2 are new and 9 are tied to continual requisitions or openings gone unfilled with the prosecutor's office, sheriff's department, and the youth facility. There are 5 positions we are recommending due to people resigning and retiring. I'd like to start off also just by saying, over the past several months, we've really gone out to educate the public on the importance of public safety at Eaton County, which comprises the prosecutor's office, the courts, and the sheriff's office. I know there's a shared reality that we're all working through what services we can sustain given the ballot proposal failed on November 5th. A lot of tough calls having to be made, but administration has the utmost confidence in Prosecutor Lloyd, Chief Judge Cunningham, and Sheriff Reich in determining paths forward for their offices. I just want to thank the dedication and service shown by so many people in this chamber and also in the audience that went out there to have those discussions. Sheriff Department update for this month, we have 11 cadets who should be graduating the academy in December. At present, we expect 10 should complete their program with no problem and would be eligible to be rolled into the Eaton County Sheriff Department field training. If these candidates were successful in passing FTO, the Sheriff's Office would be down an estimated 4 positions by May of 2025. For those counting, this is would be the best staffing the Sheriff's Office has had in, I think, 2 to 3 years easily. And had the county secured additional revenue, it would have been possible to see a return to 24/7 coverage in the out county. I know the sheriff, there's uncertainty about what coverage his office can continue to provide given the outcome on Tuesday, but again, we have the utmost confidence in our elected officials. So the positions updates before you, look for motion to approve. Discussion.
Commissioner Augustine? Oh, I'm sorry. Okay.
I was waiting for a motion before I started talking.
Right, well, give us a motion and we can start talking. Lassenheiser,
I'll support.
Augustine. And I'll start by saying that this is an area that we often rubber stamp and don't really get into the weeds on because these are positions that are already created and they're just being filled. I think that's gonna change and it needs to change. I mean, this is an area that needs scrutiny, especially with our financial situation. And I would invite the scrutiny from this board and certainly from the next board. So with that, what would you like? Yep, Commissioner Augustine.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. I mean, we have to face the reality that we have to look at each position now with a lot more detail. So, you know, the board, I think, should be provided with additional information as far as, is this a position that is required or mandated? Is it a position that deals, I know that's not as clean as, is it mandated or not? They do some things that are mandated, some things that aren't. But I do think there does absolutely need to be a higher level of discussion at this committee, this board and the future board, obviously, as to whether we actually move forward with filling these roles, because we have to start making these decisions. How long has this position been in existence? Is it something that we've, you know, recently added? Basically, can the county survive without it? I mean, obviously, we have to look at, you don't look at one position in a vacuum. You have to look at everything together holistically, which makes it difficult to do at a one-off like this. But I think that absolutely we need to have a little bit further level of discussion and information provided to this committee.
You know, at first blush, my thoughts were, let's just freeze, you know, and.
Yeah, and I don't think that's the
That's-
appropriate action either, but, you know,
Right.
there should be definitely a pause to review.
Yes, because each position has its own merits, and even though all positions are important to the county, I hate to say it, but some are absolutely necessary and you can't do without them. Other ones have, you know, other necessities to them. So I think scrutiny is required, and I think it's up to us not just to rubber stamp, you know, which has been what we've done traditionally. Commissioner Brailer.
Well, I think we have two different problems, potential problems here. We've got an awful lot of positions that are unfilled that are in the pipeline. He referenced that we've got a number of cadets out there and that they may be able to come onto the payroll and actually be deputies in May. We've also got some positions down at the bottom that are new in terms of being unfilled. And I do think that we need to take a closer look at that. When I looked at this, I don't have my glasses on, so I can't read the thing very well at all, but when I looked at this yesterday, one of the positions was thanks, but, a deputy position. And it seems to me that there were 4, and the other 3 looked to me to be, one was in central dispatch, as I recall, and one was in the jail. I don't think we should approve the deputy position at this point. You're looking at substantial cuts that are going to need to be made. And some of these positions, like the central dispatch, it has, that's covered by a separate millage question that's been passed. We know that the sheriff is mandated to run the jail, and so that the corrections officer is necessary. But I think we should start laying the groundwork now for the decisions that are gonna have to be made in January or February. And so I would suggest that, in terms of the motion, I would move that the deputy position be removed from that motion and not authorized to be filled at this time.
Well, that's a motion, so
Just to clarify, Joe, just the deputy, you're supportive of the trial court, pretrial services specialist, the property description clerk, and the public safety telecommunicator? Obviously, you talked about the dispatcher. I understand it's got its own funding source.
Well,
I remember, because, correct me if I'm wrong, the pre-trial specialist, which I was very supportive of before, but I think that comes with some funding, but doesn't that require additional, Melissa, can you shed some light on that?
Well, last fiscal year, it required a 30% contribution, or up to 30%. This fiscal year, I am not 100% positive of how much funding. Heidi would have to speak to that. She's our accountant and has done the budget for that. So she did, Heidi is saying she did 30% funded through the general fund.
Wasn't this a newer position that we added or
It is a
changed?
brand-new position that was added in fiscal year 23-24, and they have had significant issues keeping this position filled, which Court Administrator Amy Atzel would speak to much better than I can.
I think, to be fair and to look at this, I think that position probably needs to be reevaluated a little bit deeper as well. And, I don't know if, Joe, I don't know what you think. You made the amendment, so I'm not sure you amended to remove the deputy, but.
I'd be willing to add that. If you're offering a friendly amendment, I'd accept it.
what I would like to add to the conversation, and we haven't gotten to it, but I am proposing later in the agenda or in the meeting that we're gonna have another meeting, might as well talk about it, on December the 5th, another Ways and Means meeting that'll be specifically put toward actions that we think are required for this, for our funding and the restrictions. And this particular position probably could be discussed in that time. Basically, we're looking at a series of actions that we feel the county needs to take. And then these are also actions, though we may not take them as this board, that we would like to pass to the next board to give them a head start. And so I appreciate the motion, but I'd rather postpone it until we get into that sort of working session regarding this particular, all the actions that we may take. And so
Well,
if you would,
Are you saying to just basically table all the positions at this point in time? Is that what you're suggesting?
I'd like to speak to this.
Well, I was asking Blake, that I want
I'm
to
sorry,
clarify
go
what
ahead.
he was suggesting.
Well, I would be willing to withdraw my motion if we table these positions
Yeah.
until December 5th.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think that's the way that, if that's where we're headed, I'm supportive of
Yeah.
that, because again, like I said, you're looking at them as a one-off. I think we probably would all be supportive of the dispatcher, obviously, because they have their own funding source already, but maybe not. I mean, I would say that's how we would handle it.
Well, and this particular position is already in the budget and budgeted for, and there's a lot of nuances involved in making that decision at this particular moment. Connie?
So what I want to mention, when you adopted the budget, you adopted it through September 30, 2025. And I realize that we're in a tough situation and need to make cuts. We have not met with all of the departments individually or as a group to go through the breakdown of their positions and what their needs are. The first thing we would want to do realistically is to talk to them, go over what positions they have vacant, what they're doing, what their thoughts are, because I want us to remember that you have elected officials and the court. With that adopted a budget, they could actually come back and file a lawsuit against the county because they have the funding available that you provided through September 30, and come back and say you have to provide it, and there is court rulings that support that. So I wouldn't want to move on that right now. I would prefer that we approve filling these. Some positions within here, they do promotions or movement between departments. I just want to say, all of the departments within Eaton County are well aware of the financial turmoil that we are in, and they're all working, and why you see some of these positions unfilled is primarily due to the fact that they don't want to hire an employee and have to lay them off when they're told to make a reduction, whether it's a percentage of their budget or whatever it may be. So I don't want to get us into a situation where you have that adopted budget, and now you're going to pull that back and impact their operations without giving them the ability to look at it. So even putting them on hold is potentially doing that, especially when, and I'll mention pretrial services, they do have obligations they have already committed to. The court administrator and Judge Cunningham, I'm sure, would tell you that there are obligations that if they don't meet those, because they've put that position in place, could create an issue. So that's the point I wanted to make, so that we're all aware of what we're looking at.
Commissioner Augustine?
Okay, so I just want to back up a little bit here, because this train started quite a while ago, and it started with the idea that when we come into budgeting for this fiscal year that we're in, there's going to be a lot of unfortunate pain that's going to have to be felt because we couldn't sustain the budget going forward. Then when we got to budget time, we said, look, we can do this budget as it is now, instead of doing a separate budget, doing something, draconian with a bunch of cuts, or doing something that is just, budget through a certain time period. Let's pass this budget the way it is, and let's amend it as needed after the fact. Now we're being told that if we amend it, we might be sued. This is just, to me, it's just kicking the can down the road more again, which is what people were pissed at to begin with, that the can was kicked, and that's what we're doing. I am not going to be supportive of making decisions for the next board, which would be, you just said, if some of these positions aren't posted because we don't want to hire people and then lay them off, but yet now we're recommending to post positions and do the exact same thing. I cannot see how I can be supportive of that. It's not my job. I'm off the board soon. I can't make decisions for the next board, and that's what you guys are asking us to do. I think that this needs to be held off until this meeting, at least the meeting in December, when we're talking about everything holistically. I assume there's some, at least, senses of what a plan looks like and how we move forward, or how the county moves forward after this, and we start looking at those and start putting those into place. But we can't make major decisions right now when there's quite a few of us on this board that aren't going to be here in a couple of months. And that's just the unfortunate reality that we've talked about for a year. So again, my frustration level is that we're kind of changing courses again here and saying, oh, we can't, which I think is, I'm no attorney, But saying that we would be sued for basically amending our budget and changing positions, I don't buy that. So I'm not supportive of moving forward and filling any position that doesn't have a solid funding source at this point in time. That's my position. And it sucks. I don't like it. I wanted the millage to pass. I supported it. We all needed it. We knew we needed it. It didn't work. It didn't pass. We've got to start making the hard decisions now. We can't keep kicking the can and then ask the next board to kick the can. We can't do it. We just can't do it.
Commissioner Brailer?
Yeah, I'm willing to withdraw my motion if we table these new positions that are unfilled that aren't already in the pipeline. I understand that we have a budget. We passed a budget that'll get us theoretically through September 30th of 2025. I understand that. And that's good. And I understand that there's a great deal of trepidation within this building. A lot of people's families' futures are in the balance here. Nobody's quite sure what's going to happen. I've read the news reports. I've watched the videos of Chairman Mott. I know that there's at least some thought of going back to the voters with something. I understand all of that. But, Terrence is right in a lot of what he says. At some point, the public didn't believe us. That's the reality. They didn't think it was that bad. They didn't think that the services that are offered by the county are really at threat. Ben's comments referenced again public safety. I was at some of those meetings. And the big push was public safety and all that that entailed. And the voters said no. Now, did they say we don't want public safety? I really don't think that's true. What I think, and we had some of that from some elected officials from around the county saying, basically, it's not that bad. Everything will be all right. Got lots of time. We don't. We're continuing in the pipeline for these young people from these cadets to come into the sheriff's department when we know that one of the largest areas that we aren't required to do is in public safety. I don't know how many of those cadets are gonna come in here and be full-time on the road in May if they think that as of September 30th, they're not gonna have a job. But that's another problem. That's why I say we have two separate problems here. We have all of these that are in the pipeline, but we also have these new ones. I'm willing to wait till December 5th to see what options are out there. But I do not think the message we send to the general public today is a good one if we just blithely go, all right, go fill these new positions. One, they're empty, okay? So nobody who's working here right now is going to be affected by that, particularly. Now, it means extra work, I understand that, but I'm talking about the finances now. If we don't fill some of these positions in the end, if that's the decision that the next board makes, that also means there's going to be more money potentially available at the end of September that maybe, just maybe, some of the people who are here right now, working right now, getting paid right now, will still have a job. So there are, to me, there's a myriad of issues here. But I think I think we're sending a very bad message after having told the public that there's a significant problem if we just continue to do business as usual. And so, as I say, I'm willing to withdraw my motion and wait till December 5th if we table these new positions, these new unfilled positions until that time.
How many are close to being hired, these positions?
This one. This one's open.
I wish you hadn't withdrawn your motion, but I support you, what you said wholeheartedly. No, fill my coffee cup, please. Half, anyway.
This one. Somebody. Academy. So it would not.
So my discussion with Mr. Dawson is, you know, how many of these positions are, how far along are we in the process for these? And that's kind of the question too. I probably should have started with the December 5th thing, so we kind of have a direction. I was gonna get to that at the end. And let's get through this motion and we'll talk about that, if that's okay with everybody. Jeannie?
Hi. Okay, I have listened to what everyone has said, and I also listened to our controller. And I do know that in some of our southern counties down in our region of MAC, that they have had lawsuits as far as court staffing. And I don't know how they ever came out or anything like that, but I do know that court staffing was lawsuits. So, and I do see that we have the one position there in trial court. So our controller is saying that there is ability to have lawsuits taken to the state over court staffing.
I can't think of an even worse message to the general public if the elected officials are going to sue to basically cannibalize the county in the situation that we have now. But that's fine. I mean, everybody gets to make a choice.
Commissioner Lostenheiser?
I guess outside of the potential legal issue that you cited, I mean, what is, I guess I just want to understand the additional downside of tabling this motion.
Tabling it until the 5th makes sense, given the fact that none of these individuals and departments have had any communication as to what steps you're going to take because the proposal didn't pass. So to do that right now and actually say you're not filling it and not just tabling it, to me is an issue. And again, I'll just express, when we worked on budgeting and we could have made those cuts in this budget. And then we could have, brought them back in the event that the proposal passed. You didn't do that.
Because you told us
No.
the recommendation was to not do that.
No, we could have, we could have added money toward the fund balance from another funding source to do that, so that we're not down to a $3 million fund balance at the end of 24-25. So we could have made different decisions then as well to get us through that point. What I want to say is that the departments that we're talking about have been responsible, have not filled positions. You can see them listed that have been unfilled for a long time. I can tell you that the prosecutor's office would have had a candidate that they could have hired or at least made an offer to. I can't say that the person would have accepted it, but the prosecutor told the individual, I don't want to offer a position in the event that I have to lay it off. So again, I mean, I understand what Commissioner Augustine is saying, but to this point, you adopted a budget through September 30, 25. We talked about making cuts that would be layered. We talked about making cuts effective 10/1/25 in your budget. So that was whether I made that recommendation or not, that's where we're at right now. And it wasn't a bad recommendation to do that because you were going to impact employees who were going to start looking for another job. But we did pass a budget that is through September 30, 25.
Mr. Chair, I would move that we amend the motion to table these positions at this time.
Okay, and this is an amended motion rather than passing it, so I don't have to back up. So we're going to table this, and again, I'm sorry that I didn't talk about the December meeting in the beginning. I was going to get to that later, and so we're talking about tabling these positions until that meeting, which is going to be scheduled in December. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Now, I would like to, I don't want to talk about December right now because it's out of order of the agenda. I'd like to kind of keep moving along on the agenda, and then we'll have a fuller discussion about what this December meeting will entail and what the purposes are. And so we'll discuss that a little later on in the meeting, if that's okay. Okay, Mr. Dawson?
Okay, on to the next
Insurance.
portion, yes. So we have this broken up into two sections, and Dan Skyver from Brown & Brown is here as well to help answer questions that you all may have. I'll try to go through it, but for extra assistance, he's here. So thank you for making the trip, Dan. So it's two sections. First is just talking about renewals and the bid process, so we'll go through a quick overview of those. And then we'll do the second piece will be the illustrative rate, or what the actual cost sharing will look like for Eaton County. So we'll go through PA 152 and have discussions on that, but they're two separate segments the way we've got it set up. So first, for the RFP selection for health insurance, we only received one bid for our active employee population. Administration is recommending renewal with Blue Cross Blue Shield based on this. A couple changes that were included in this is adding autism coverage at a cost of $23,838 annually. This is a proactive liability mitigation decision. So while state law allows the county as a self-funded plan to not provide this coverage, we're still in a position where such a decision not to cover can be litigated in federal court. So it's our opinion that adding the coverage is the best choice to provide employees who need access to the care, and then to limit our exposure to liability. One other change was we added a modest increase in the number of chiropractic visits in CB6. So we have two plans, CB12, which is free for employees, CB6, which is a buy-up. That plan only had 6. As CB12, the free one had 12. So we're just equalizing the number of chiropractic visits between both plans. We believe this was oversight that just never got addressed in previous years, and the cost to do that is $2,008 annually. The increased cost for the county stop-loss coverage, so that's the fee that we pay to have any claim over $100,000 covered by an insurance carrier, that went up 18% in this coming year.
So currently, would you give us some hard numbers on what our stop-loss coverage is at currently, how much, and then what it's going to be?
Yep, so, go ahead, yeah.
So our current stop-loss coverage is at $100,000, and so that costs per employee covered, I apologize, Mr. Dawson, how much is that? I know you have the number pulled up.
Yeah, let me see. Yeah, for the stop loss, 100,000. Dan, if you want to come up too, yeah. 100,000? Well, yeah, that's where it kicks in. You're asking the employer cost per contract?
Correct. The employer cost.
Three.
The stop loss stays at 100, which is where it always has been.
Yeah, so the total monthly premium, it's not broken up by contract, is $38,905.15.
And that's going up 17%.
That is it with the increase of the 18% already built into it.
Okay, that's got 18% built, okay.
I will say that's like the average increase we've seen across the board. It's just a function of higher claims and higher risk that come in. And part of the formula to determine the rate is future risk. They look at your claims ran, an average group your size, we expect to see 10 large claims, 10 large claimants in a year. You had 13, so you're 30% above, and I think you've seen that in your claims. and there's still a projection that to be at 12 of next year. So part of it is the current risk, and part of it is looking at the future risk, and that goes into the rating. So that's, you're expected to continue above trend in '25 and perhaps into '26 as well, depending if the claims are ongoing or one time, so.
So that's the state of insurance, and we knew that we were pushing the top for the last 2 years. And so now we're getting our new contract, and we're looking at how much overall increase? I don't think you've mentioned that yet.
Yeah, so the 18.08 is the overall increase. In terms of the cost sharing, that gets into the discussion of PA 152, which we've got outlined, but just wanted to start by talking about the bids that we received and what the recommendations are, and then separately is the deliberation about what cost sharing looks like.
If I could just have a brief comment on the bids. We went to 6 medical carriers, and basically, we had 6 rejections. It was just, and we've seen that again across the board on all our clients. There's just, insurance companies are risk adverse right now, and if they don't feel like they're gonna be competitive, they just don't want to put in the time to do it. They're just focused on the cases where they think they could be competitive, and quite frankly, most are not because of this, the way things are running today. And it's every plan. It's not just your plan. It's across the board with pretty much every self-funded, insured, private, public. It's across the board.
Well, and you're the expert in this because you deal for a lot of companies and businesses and public agencies with putting out the bids and evaluating them. So it isn't just us. What you're seeing along industry lines, and everyone is pretty much facing the same sort of increases?
Yeah, big picture, there's really 3 things right now going on. One is, and this is not new, but it goes back to COVID. If you look back at your numbers during the shutdown, the lockdown, the claims that people seeking services dropped off to very slow. And a lot of things were delayed or just not done. Preventative testing is a big one. Now what you're seeing is people getting these back and getting regular services now, but you're seeing people getting illnesses identified, and that goes right back to that 30% increase above trend, above where you expect you to be. A lot of things were pushed off and now getting caught, and it's like a big wave, and it's impacting really nationally. So you're seeing that across the board in the entire industry. 2 is the increase in specialty medications, which are, approved by the FDA, and they're the only things that treat it that's allowed. Usually they get a 20-year patent or so from the FDA, and those drugs can be $5,000 to $10,000 a month, depending. And they're great for treating diseases, but they're just super expensive. So you're seeing a huge increase. They represent a very small increase of your drugs dispensed, but that's where all your increases are coming at in the prescription drugs. And a subset of that are the GLP-1 medications for weight loss, which I know you've discussed at length. I won't go into that, but so those are really the 3 things we're seeing that are universal across the board. And of course, your stop loss is $100,000, so $100,000 per employee, but it's on medical and drug claims. So once a family or an individual achieves $100,000 in claims for the year, then the stop loss kicks in. So part of that risk is not only your medical claims, it's your drug claims that they do the analysis on. So, and that's just what we're seeing today, so.
And I would note with the GLP-1s, we made the decision to eliminate the lifestyle medications. If we had not made that decision, it would be about a 4% increase on the illustrative rates from where they're at today. So that I think it was the right move to make that so that today we can at least just look at what is the cost of the stop loss.
100%. Everybody across the board has made the decision to eliminate the coverage. It's pretty much universal because you just can't afford it. And you can go direct to the drug manufacturer website and get coupons, get a highly subsidized, for Wegovy as an example of one, and a highly subsidized rate that's actually really right on par with what Blue Cross pays on their rate. So I mean, now it's not your copay, you're still paying a lot, it's still an expensive medication, but they're highly subsidized as an individual, so you can still have direct access to it, so.
Okay.
Thank you. So I'll continue on, so, okay.
I want to just stay close.
Yeah, so we received 2 bids for insurance, and we're recommending to keep our renewal with Delta Dental. at the current rates and the current coverage levels. Let me pull that up. So the change monthly for that would be $275 per contract, which is a 6.1% change total for the illustrative rate, which I believe is $11,451 annually. And we're recommending that we retain Delta Dental. In some of these instances, there was like a low level of savings you could get by switching, but the level of disruption employees go through when you switch providers and the whole network switches, we didn't think that there was enough value there to justify doing that kind of a switch. So, go ahead.
Yeah, dental and vision, they're a minor subset of the big issue, which is the health insurance.
And we recommend staying with IMED as well. The illustrative rate increase for that was 5.57% or $1,455 a year. So we're recommending staying with our current provider network that employees are used to.
Yeah, and I will say the IMED, that the administrative fee has been $1 per employee, I think over 8 years now, maybe 10 years now. So they haven't changed the admin fee in forever. It's just, increase in reimbursement for claims to providers is what you're seeing, which is modest in the vision industry, so. Right.
And then for Medicare Advantage, we did get 2 bids for that, but like we discussed last month, we have a 30-month rate guarantee through January 2027. We are absolutely recommending that we stay with that for the duration of the rate guarantee as it holds the best value for the county. We can expect at the renewal that the rate will go up significantly due to federal changes to what Medicare Advantage plans look like and their coverage levels, but for now, we're locked in, and that's a good deal for the county.
Yeah, 100%.
And this particular issue, we need to make a motion on and move because employees' insurance is coming up first of the year, and we're kind of at the late stages.
You are correct. We did delay open enrollment. We just sent out the information to employees, I want to say yesterday, letting them know. So we'll have, I believe, a 2-week period beginning early December, but we'll have to have these rates in place in order for Andrea Brown & Brown to get everything set up to push all that through quickly. So at this juncture, before we go on to PA 152 and the cost sharing, would be administration's requesting Ways and Means Committee make a motion authorizing the Controller's Office to sign and enter into agreements based on the renewal recommendations made above for the upcoming benefit year 2025.
Commissioner Augustine?
Yeah, just, I don't see the actual contract in here, but these are all just 1-year renewals, correct?
Correct, except Medicare Advantage, we have a rate.
Right,
block,
other than that one
but-
that we have this, yeah, I got
But if we, for some reason, decided we wanted to walk away from that, we can. There are paths to do that, but.
So it just and it's obviously, again, this is for the future board to decide, but there's going to have to be decisions made. Healthcare is one of our highest costs here at the county. What changes can you make changes after you renew? So like if you wanted to change coverages to save costs or change co-pays, things like that, I assume you can.
Yeah.
My understanding is that.
You can change it anytime. It's 60-day notice would be required in advance to the employees of the change, but yes, you can make changes.
I mean, I'm not suggesting that. I hope that
Yeah.
the board doesn't have to go to that point. But again, there's going to be some tough decisions that are going to have to be made. And
The
so
only thing you're locked.
what I want to do, I'm sorry to cut you off.
No, you're fine.
My big thing is just, again, I don't want to hamstring the next board. So I want to do whatever we can to keep things running, keep everybody as positive as we can, but also make sure that we're not hamstringing the next board's ability to address the situation.
So let me say, I think in preparation for the December 5th meeting, we will probably request if you guys have ideas and thoughts about what can be done, even if it's not actionable by this board, give them to us. Because our goal is to compile a list and go through and kind of lay out the pros and cons and process, right? Because that's the stage that we're at right now. So in instance of health insurance, there is some control that we have, but there is some that we don't. So for instance, if we wanted to contemplate changes in deductibles, out-of-pocket maximums, et cetera, we'll have to bargain that, which we can do. We can send the letter, but so we keep in mind if we want to make a benefit change on the end with Blue Cross Blue Shield, 60 days, but then we also know we've got to go through a round of bargaining, and so we'd have to do opening letters. Not that it can't be done, but to your point, educating a new board that's maybe never sat in a position like this, that's part of what staff needs to put together. So if you have the ideas, start jotting them down, and we can help add context if that So, yeah.
So given that, we'll need a motion.
Support.
Lassenheiser, Augustine. This is the motion to adopt this or execute the contract with Brown and Brown, Blue Cross Blue Shield, IMED, and Delta Dental, I guess. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Thank you. And speaking of what, again, don't want to backtrack, but that is sort of our plan for the December meeting, is not to hamstring the next board, but to give them a list of options and things that we think they should look
Now we
at.
have to talk about.
So I don't, okay. Next.
So the
Now we get
next
into the
is-
legal part of it.
Yep, so next is our rights as a, sure, actually, that might be helpful. So under PA 152, employers have essentially three rights. There's an 80-20 cost share where it's pretty cut and dry. It's 80% employer, 20% employee. Then we have the hard caps, and this was the method and approach which has been used by the county for a long time. We did deviate by doing the third option last year, which is an override, which is a 2/3 majority of the full board authorizes to do so, and you can choose your own cost sharing. Little background, PA 152 originally passed in 2011, meant to limit public employers' expenditures for employee medical benefit plans. So again, those three levels that we talked about, and historically, we, for a long time, did the hard caps. The hard caps go up each year at a level set by the Treasury Department. It's supposed to be an indicator that should reflect like costs. But to give you an example, this year it went up by 0.2%, not even a full percentage. And in a year where everyone's seen over 10% increases on their plans, I believe the legislature's contemplating taking action to do an override. I've looked at the bills as somebody who worked in the state legislature, and as an HR professional, I find them thoroughly confusing. So I don't know when those pass, what they'll look like, but they will not impact this year. Likely, it would be a 2026 change, and we'll have to rely on legal counsel to interpret the musings of the legislature. But at this time, we've included in the packet a breakdown of if we were to adopt on our current rates, 80-20, what they are, if we were to do hard caps, what they are, and we have a recommendation. So if we were to do an 80-20 for single person on CB6, the rate is currently $67.59. Under that model, it would jump to $168.15, which is a significant increase of $98.54 a month, which we believe would be counter to the efforts we've made in retention and recruitment. Hard caps, which is what we used to do, I would note, because of the way the hard cap increases have gone up, if we adopted hard caps, we would no longer have a free plan. Both plans would be, employees would have to pay for. You would just have one plan that's cheaper than the other. So it would be the first time that's ever happened. So that would make the rate go from $67.59 a month up to $169.51. So that's also a significant increase. And what we're recommending is that this board, through a resolution, recommend to the full board that we do an opt-out again, similar to what we did last year, and then we come up with our own cost-sharing provision. Administration's recommending passing on 5% of that cost to employees. It's in line with what the cost of living adjustment that we did was. That would bring the CB6 for a single payer at $67.59 is where it's at today, up to $70.97. So it would be a $3.38 increase. And we think that that would be the best course of action right now while the legislature interprets what to do with the hard caps. So the effect that have on the county budget, total costs would be an $876,420 change, of which $595,444 would be general fund. What we would like to do is a departmental review, so we believe that the group vacancies and offices over the course of the year will help cover many departments' costs underneath that change. Also, so you got position savings. We also budget that everyone that we fill a vacancy will be family coverage, but we hire a lot of people that aren't, so there's savings there from what we budget. Any rates that aren't covered, we would first look to fill with savings. Secondly, we have ARPA interest that we would look to use that if necessary. And if those two items weren't enough, but I think they will be, but then it would be general fund that would fill the difference on the back end. So this would require a budget amendment if fully approved by the board.
So what you're telling us is that there is an increase to our general fund, but because we don't have full capacity on our employees, and we have a funding source to cover what might be left, that there wouldn't be necessarily
Yeah.
impact on the general fund
At the end, but
in the end.
in the meantime, we have to budget as if we're gonna be fully staffed and they'll all be family, but if in December 5th, we make decisions on positions, if, in coming months, there are additional changes, those will all get reevaluated, but as today, adhering to the budget as it was passed originally, this is how it would get incorporated in.
Commissioner Brailer?
So this increase of $500,000 to the general fund is something that isn't in the budget that we just passed? I mean, people
That
have
is
talked
in
about how-
addition to that is in addition to what is already currently budgeted, yes. We budgeted for a 7% increase on our health insurance costs, and obviously, that is not what we have experienced, so.
Yeah.
The ARPA interest is not money that has a lot of rules associated with it, so it is money that can be used for this purpose. But again, our goal would be to use position savings and any savings from lower plans first before using ARPA interest.
Commissioner Augustine?
Well, for discussion's sake, since we're looking at the options, what would the budget amendment need to be if we did pass the share on to the employees? I can't remember, Ben, what option that was. I think it was the first option you talked about.
Yeah, either 80-20 or hard caps are two options. That's just a simple majority, not a 2/3 required, like the override.
No, my question is what budget amendment? I assume that because we projected a 7% increase, we're looking at 18%. There's going to be some level of budget amendment that's gonna need to be made anyways. So I'm just trying to figure out, again, what is the cost of continuing to keep things status quo right now, to determine if that's what we need to do? I mean, that's...
I would recommend we look at that and have that presented for you December 5th. Is that,
Well, the only problem is because we have open enrollment, that's the
Yeah.
difficult piece.
So we don't know if we did an 80-20, we don't know what that would cost the county?
Not at present. If we would like, we could take a recess, use the restroom, and we could work on that. Not that.
Well, I think it's appropriate to know the difference
Yeah,
in that.
no,
I mean,
I get
we're
it.
talking about making a $500,000 budget adjustment when we don't have the money, so I think we need to know
I'd like that.
what the difference is.
I mean, I get it.
We're taking
Bear
a
in
10-minute
mind,
recess.
yeah.
Thank you.
And do the hard cap as well. I mean, we might as well know what the numbers are for all three of them.
Yeah.
Okay, welcome back. Thank you for the break. And in that time, we've done some figuring. It looks like we've got some numbers to look at. And the question was, what are the actual costs for the other options, the 80/20 and the hard cap? And a couple, yes.
Are you talking into your mic?
Okay. Yes, so we're coming back and we're looking at some actual numbers for the hard caps, the 80/20 plan, and the opt-out, and possibly looking at some different percentages. So,
So, yeah, we'll start with Melissa. So she's got the figures run through the 80/20 and then the hard cap.
Okay, so if we went with an 80/20 split, the difference for our funding, we would end up with $215,165 that would be needed in total from both general fund and special revenue funds. General fund alone would be $146,170. And all of those funds could be covered from ARP interest revenue. So if we did the hard caps, the total cost to the county would be $110,091. General fund cost would be $74,910. So, and then if we do the 5% increase, it would be the total of $876,420, general fund contribution of $595,440. I also ran this at a 10% employee contribution, and that would end up being a total change from the 5% of only $23,564. So,
that surprises me.
yes.
Okay. So if we pay 5%, or the employees pay 5%,
If the employees pay 5%,
$595,440.
for the general fund, correct.
General fund.
If the
Employees pay 10%, it's
general funded,
70,000.
yes, it's $579,430, correct.
And if they take 20%, it's 147,000, is that what you said?
I did not figure it at, oh, sorry, the 80/20%. 80/20 is not at a 20% increase. Those are two different numbers.
Right, yeah.
So,
Yeah, that's a good point, okay. But that's the other option.
correct. What was?
The current, was the question?
The current cost to employees is,
I think we're doing the 95.5, aren't we?
We did an
We
override.
did last year?
We did an override and held at the hard cap rate from the prior fiscal year.
correct.
So the percentages we're talking about would be on top of what that over PA 152 overrided rate we decided last year.
Now, I will also note that currently in the American Rescue Plan Act funding, there is $585,000 in interest revenues. I anticipate that will go up to just over $600,000 between the end of 23-24 fiscal year and today. So that those funds could be used to help offset those costs. And that's what our office is recommending.
So that would be a full offset, with those monies, but actually, we're not backing in the unfunded positions, which are, we look at as 10%?
Correct.
So I'd like to see a choice on one of these guys, because we do need to get into insurance season. And I know it's complicated, but
I can do, so we were recommending that the Ways and Means Committee move to the full board, that the county adopt PA 152 override, which is listed as a resolution, and then the controller implement a 5% rate increase outlined. That percentage is flexible, but in order to do a custom cost sharing, we would have to do the PA 152 override.
And that override would require 2/3 of the board.
Correct.
Correct. Oh, no, I'm sorry, that was the 80-20 split that I listed first. So that cost would be the $876,420. That's the total cost to all funding sources, $595,000 to the general fund. Now, that is based on full staff, which we do not currently have, as well as any unfilled positions budgeted at full family coverage, which again, we do not always have. So we will have savings from unfilled positions as well as positions that are filled with employees that choose other coverage.
Support.
Discussion? Yes, Jeannie.
How much longer do we have ARPA funds?
So we have until December 31st of 2024 in order to obligate or re-obligate any outstanding ARPA funds. That does not include our interest revenue. That is revenues that are able to be used as the county sees fit. And it does not have an end date.
We will be allocating the ARPA funds soon. And
I'll mention it. There's a
we're talking about it.
thing about the bank intercounty
a little
drain,
bit.
so we'll talk about it there, yeah.
Thank you.
Each of our, yeah, okay, the motion on the floor is to move to the full board insurance with the override from the board with the 2/3 majority and 5% to the employee increase. Questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Okay, we got a holiday schedule.
This one's pretty cut and dry. Every year we have our annual holiday schedules that we put out for all county employees. They're separated by union group and in some cases classification. The schedules before you reflect all the work completed in our collective bargaining earlier this year. So administration requests a motion approving the schedules so the controller's office can begin getting signatures together.
And these are already written into the bargaining
Correct.
contracts.
Yep.
So this is the schedule that we've already agreed to for all of our union employees.
Correct.
And if we were to add a day, for any reason, it costs $100,000.
Thank you for the information.
Okay, your wishes.
You need a motion?
I do.
I move it.
Rogers, Lassenheiser, help for the, okay, Rogers, DeRocha. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Okay, audit. Thank you, Mr. Dawson.
Absolutely.
Melissa, now it's your turn, even though you've been the center of the stage for a while.
So good morning. So I am actually going to start out before I go through my audit corrective action plan update. I would like to update you all on the status of the Windsor Township MTT that was brought before you in August. And so we actually did go to a pre-tribunal meeting between the claimant and Kern Schlechter, who is the Windsor Township Supervisor. We were able to settle this before going to the tribunal. And while it wasn't exactly what it doesn't, our portion does not stay the same. Neither do we go down to what the independent person was trying to get to. So the total ends up being favorable for both parties. So Kern, Mr. Schluchter did a fabulous job. He put a lot of time and effort into ensuring that we had the appropriate information as we needed. And like I said, it was actually favorable to both parties, so didn't hurt quite so bad.
Well, and I would add that, you know, that was something that we were looking for direction as a board. We don't have a policy on supporting locals in the Michigan Tax Tribunal. And it was one of those things that was on our to-do list. And I think it'll be on the next board's do list because these are, you know, these are just, sometimes the locals just don't have the wherewithal or any kind of expertise in taxing, and it puts them at a disadvantage. And, you know, where we can help, I think, would be beneficial in some instances. And Tim, I'm sure you agree with that. That's a, sometimes we're helpful to the locals in that area.
Yeah, definitely.
Go ahead.
Speak real quick. The problem is the court costs are so high. If you go through the full tribunal, that's what they gotta look at. So sometimes if you can settle out of court, it's beneficial to both sides essentially.
And we're the partner that the locals should look toward in that area, I think, for some counsel and some, just some backing, right?
Yeah, because the problem is if you go through a full tribunal all the way, you're looking at legal costs, you're looking at appraisal costs, and you're talking court fees, which are quite high in these big cases. So it's a lot of costs you got to consider, unfortunately.
Okay,
And then even if you go all the way, there's no guarantee you're going to win.
right,
That's a big problem.
right.
Yep, and that is why Mr. Schluchter tried his hardest to settle before we got to the actual tribunal. And so it was very interesting to witness that and be part of it, so.
Okay, thank you. And thanks for your work on that.
So now on to my regular updates. So we are currently in my office working on our audit documentation and wrapping up all the journal entries that need to be done. I have quite an extensive list of things that need to be completed, but we are actually checking things off. I'm happy to provide that for the December 5th meeting, if so choose, or also for the next Ways and Means meetings. I can include that in the packet so you guys can see where we are at with everything. We do continue to meet with our accounting firm to have assistance. There's additional items that I don't have 100% answers on, so I prefer to have guidance on that, and so they've been absolutely invaluable. Are there any questions? Okay, I will move on to our health insurance report. Not very much has substantially changed from last month. We did receive our September amounts, however, we have not received our September settlement. So once we receive that, we will be able to close out the fiscal year and know exactly how much money we need to transfer from American Rescue Act Plan Act funding. We have an amount currently set as up to $185,000 per the board.
So we're at a negative 253?
Correct. But we do have a pending settlement adjustment.
That's the
and-
question, because what you just said doesn't balance out the budget with.
Correct, it does not. However, we do also have, we have adjustments for the end of the fiscal year for our incurred but not reported. So there's a lot of moving pieces to this before the fund is actually finalized and balanced. That's why I did not move anything from that fund as of yet.
So that will be a budget amendment probably next month?
No, that will not. That is actually a budget amendment that's already been completed. We just have not completed the transfer.
Okay.
If there are any other questions, I'll move on to our child care fund report. Child Care Fund report, we have, as of September, these are not final numbers just yet. However, these are close to final numbers. So as you can see, our fund balance did increase from last month's report by about $300,000. We have received substantially more in revenues due to a 10% increase and early implementation of changes at the state level for the community-based treatment programs. So, are there any questions regarding this?
It's nice to see a positive number.
Agreed. If there are no questions, that concludes my reports.
Okay, thank you. Any questions? Thank you, Melissa. Chad? Public Improvement Fund.
Morning.
Morning.
Okay, so we had a pretty busy month last month. As you all are aware, we wrapped up the youth facility. We had some last-minute hurdles that the state of Michigan, Laura, and the Bureau of Fire Services threw at us, but we were able to satisfy their requirements, and final inspections and certificate of occupancy was granted last Friday, November 1st. Originally, we were shooting for October 1st, as you know. We filed for an extension and was able to secure that, so we made it through the extension, everything on budget, and except for a few hurdles at the last minute, we were able to get through that. So now the facility is complete, turned over to Jeremy and his staff, and I'm out of the picture now. We're just maintaining it, and it's Jeremy's to take from here. Other than that, we'll be getting the concrete sidewalks repaired here at the courthouse here before it gets too cold. We're onboarding contractor at this point, so hopefully by next month I'll have a better update on that. You'll start to see that happening. And closing out our 23-24 projects, and then kicking off our 24-25 projects is what we're doing here in my department. Also wanted to report we had 2 power outages earlier this week. One Monday, November 4th, approximately 1:20 p.m. We lost power at the courthouse and animal control facility, as well as the sheriff's storage building. And it turned out to be a consumer's energy issue, a blown fuse up on the high line. They were out, repaired it, and then, or thought they repaired the issue, and then Tuesday morning, election day, a little after 7, we lost power again. At that point, they had to do some more significant investigating, and we were without power all day long on election day, which, as you can imagine, raised some concerns and issues with the county clerk's office and circuit court clerks. We were able to all come together with the help of 911, IT, and get them on board with generator power, so they were able to have the workstations available for the all-day election day. So, yeah, other than that, we continue to move on. This is, that fortunately, or unfortunately, however you want to look at it, both of the issues were on consumers' energy's end, and it was theirs to fix and repair.
Well, and there was a lot of misinformation or whatever goes around. It is election day. I saw the picture of the burned up wire underground. It was right. It was a wire that had been put in over 50 years ago, and it chose that day to short out. And when I saw the picture, it was like, geez, But
it just goes to show the aging infrastructure. Again, luckily it was on consumers' end, but there will be, in the future, it's gonna hit us where it's our responsibility to fix, and it comes at a significant cost. Had that been an internal issue, we may still be working on it, But it's part of the aging infrastructure. Like you mentioned, a 50-year-old line underground. We got some moisture that day, significant, and it shorted it out, and we lost power to the entire building here. So Those things are gonna happen. They're gonna continue to happen. We just need to be somewhat prepared for it the best we can, so.
Yep. Any questions for Chad?
Thank you.
Okay, and thank you. We all went through the youth facility tour, and what a, it's just great. It's a great place for our youth to be, and thank you again, Jeremy, for offering the tour, and if you hadn't had the opportunity, you still could have probably arranged it with Jeremy to take a look at what we've got over there.
Thank you.
All right, so next is the resolution to authorize application for bank inter-county state grant funding. And after that, I'll talk a little bit about the ARPA funds with relation to this project to just put it on everybody's radar. But included in the packet is a resolution authorizing Eaton County to submit for the $5 million in state appropriations for assistance to the Bank Inter-County Drain District for the upcoming project. This $5 million in state grant funding will be applied to the top of the project, so it will reduce the cost for all levels of government and property owners within the drainage district. So this will also benefit Ingham County to a small degree because they represent 5% of the district, but largely it's a benefit for Delta residents, and the county and the road commission, who all share a burden in paying for that assessment. As many of you know, this request is an example of the fruit that can be born from Eaton County's involvement in proactively advocating on behalf of residents in the county. This process took countless hours of staff time, and letters of support were written by many in this room and in the audience, and so we thank you for that, and we thank Representative Whitwer for her advocacy on our behalf. So with that, administration would request a motion authorizing the Controller's Office to submit for the grant on behalf of the county.
Support.
Heiser, Rogers. This is the grant to take the $5 million from that was been allocated, that could be allocated to us if we allow it. And again, this is off the top of the cost, and so it benefits everyone that's in that drain district, and which is a real positive thing for all the residents in the district, which is a large number of them in Delta Township. So, motion on the floor. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
And then I'll talk briefly, but we are in the process. We have a memorandum of understanding that we've had a legal counsel draft for us that would allow us to enter into an intergovernmental agreement with the drainage district. Part of this has to do with refined requirements for the ARPA funds. So previously it was just you had to allocate it through the budget, but now as they're coming down to the winding down, you actually have to enter into some kind of contractual service or have a bill of services before a certain date. So this MOU that will be proposed at the December 5th meeting would be with us in the drainage district. That portion of whatever ARPA is allocated there would apply only to the county portion, so it wouldn't be at the top. So the state grant money, we estimate, probably saved about $500,000 off the cost of the project for the county total over the life of it. And if we apply the ARPA in this way, it would save about $4.2 million in interest over the 30-year period that bond is expected to have. So administration's recommendation is this is a good use for one-time funds to free up annually what we would pay in assessments, and it's, I think, a good move where we're at fiscally as a county.
So we've got this ARPA money that's left over from the years. It has to be allocated. In fact, more complicated than that, it has to be almost spent.
Correct.
By the end of the year. And we feel that a good use for it is to pay down the monies that we're gonna owe for the bank's drain funding. So, any questions? Now the first money came off the top, so that is for everybody. This is county money. It's going in and it takes it off from our share directly.
Correct, yep. So and this is a rough estimate because when you bond for this size of a bond, usually there's like a schedule, and Treasurer Robinson could probably talk to this more, but where you pay a higher interest rate usually for the first few years, and then But we just did an amortization schedule using like a simple 30-year equal. But we estimate that the payment that we would have with the 5 million and if we allocate the ARPA would be hopefully about 68,000 a month, down from originally before state grants and ARPA, which would have been 313,000. So it's a sizable change for the county over time.
Very meaningful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I will say, I think some of these ARPA funds were at one time for internet for the county, but there is enough federal money through a BEAD grant program that pretty much, I think the entire state of Michigan is going to be getting high-speed internet through the existing federal program. So that was part of the calculus of discussions with Chairman Mott and Chair Mulder about what would be the most impactful use of these dollars in the long run, since we know the internet's been taken care of.
Questions or comments?
So this is just for information today? You referenced December 5th, so we're not being asked to do anything today. We're going to wait till December?
Correct, because what we want to clear up in our MOU with the drainage district, because we're doing this, we may have a grantee relationship, so we're firming up the reporting language they have to give us to make sure we meet our reporting obligations. So that's the only reason it's not on the agenda today, or was on the agenda and had to take it off, because we've got to fine tune that language.
And of course, we learned ARPA money, a lot of municipalities and townships, they were allowed to do whatever they wanted with it. And we were held under a lot of very strict regulations, and Melissa will tell you that if that was done wrong, it creates a lot of problems for the county and for audits and for Melissa. So we need to make sure that we cross the Ts and dot the Is on this one. So, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay. So we'll probably have a motion on this one on our next meeting, which I haven't set yet, but we'll get to that. Which actually is, we're getting there. Okay, budget amendments.
There are none.
Okay, committee applicants report.
So related to the appointments, the Historical Commission, we did talk to each of the applicants. They have requested to be reappointed. We would make that recommendation, as well as the Building Authority. And then on the Land Bank, there were 3 applicants, Tim Lewis, Commissioner Lotzenheiser, and you heard from Yvonne Ridge. Tim Lewis was unavailable today. So he would like to come next month to this committee and speak. So I would like to not take any action on that one, but for the other 2, you could take action today.
And Commissioner Lotzenheiser might have something to say.
Next month, Brian.
Yeah,
sorry.
I'll approach the podium appropriately and do it under public comment next week.
I'll move the reappointments to the Historical Commission and the Building Authority.
Moved and supported. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Okay. Bills
Move that we pay them.
and payments. Moved by Brailer, supported by
Drosha.
DeRosa. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. All right. That's kind of I don't know. Number 17 is really about some of our future planning. The first thing in this is that I would like to create a meeting at 9 o'clock on the 5th of December to get specific about some of our plans. So I'm setting the time right now. Put it on your calendars. It's a Thursday, and council can be here at on that date and that time in case it's necessary. Right? So, in general, what I see, I think Commissioner Augustine is right. We're not in the position to make a lot of big decisions, but we are in a position to give some experience to the next board as to things that are appropriate. And I look at things that might be very draconian and drastic, right down to some that are obvious. But we want to give those options to the next board and let them hit the ground running, more or less. You know, again, it's not our decision to make at this board. We all know that. But some decisions will be made at the December 5th meeting. I guess my notes on it, I'm going to just say it, is that it's important to formally say that going forward we'll be scrutinizing any and all positions, especially the new positions. The idea that positions with full or partial funding from the non-general fund sources do not carry cost to Eaton County, that's just not true. Even if it is a funded, non-general fund revenue source, there are costs that come to us. Every position costs. And just because they may have millage attached to it, you know, we've always gone under the assumption that these particular positions are paid for. And reality is that all positions are a cost to the general fund to some degree or other because of administration and IT and all sorts of things that aren't actually built into the costs. There's a cost to technology services, HR, and the finance division. The burden placed on the administrative for these positions have to be evaluated. We will not post any new positions until and approved by this committee, which is starting at that point, you know? So we still have discussions about the ones that are already posted and are there. Here at Ways and Means, I would like to direct the sheriff to find ways to reduce his overall budget and to alleviate the stress on his officers. We support him in his efforts to implement decisions that he finds as expeditious and necessary for the betterment of his officers' safety and well-being, and to decrease the costs associated with overtime expenses and to share those decisions with the public and other law enforcement agencies. So, and the sheriff is currently working on some plans that will, in fact, save dollars. And I think we'll have to, as they come to fruition and work their way through, I think we need to be informed about that. We're going to direct the Controller's Office to present a list of possible changes that can be made to address the prospective revenue shortfalls. Ways and Means will hold a special meeting on Thursday, December the 5th at 9 o'clock to go over the preliminary list and discuss some of those items on the list. And I would encourage all commissioners, if they have input that would to be possible revenue, something that's substantial, that they contact me or the administrative staff so we can get those involved into the list. And again, I've given the administration a couple of things that I see are possible areas to find some cuts. And like I said, they can go from draconian that might not be enacted to things that are barely or basic common sense. Don't get down to the paper clips and the staples savings, if you would, you know, because we've done that. We did that back in the last crisis when we made a lot of cuts. We actually dug down into the nitty gritty, and we're looking at, we need to save big dollars, not changing paper clip suppliers. We need substantive structural changes, and we'll get the controller working on that. To the end, I want to let's open it up for a little discussion here. You guys know where we're going with this and how we're going to do it? Commissioner Augustine.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, thank you. I just want to add to my comments earlier about, not hamstringing the next board. I think, just to be clear, it's not just hiring staff that may have to be let go. It's not just making decisions that, could potentially impact them from putting people in the positions. It's also the other things that we can't hamstring them by making draconian cuts and decisions on the other side as well. Okay, so again, like picking people out and saying we don't want to fill that position, we don't want to fill that, without having a good conversation about what that means. And so I appreciate the fact that we're looking at this more holistically. I do like that approach a lot better than just looking at each, pulling each position out when it comes up to us here at this committee, especially during the next couple of months while we're here. So I'm also very supportive of the idea of laying the groundwork as much as we can for the next board, to give them a blueprint, suggestions. There are several of us that aren't going to be here and several new people, but there is going to be some level of consistency with some of us here. Hopefully with our chairperson. I do hope that, it's up to the next board, but I do hope that he's willing to continue to serve and the next board is willing to continue to put him in that role, because I've got just a ton of respect and admiration for what Chairman Mott has done over the last 2 years in his term. He's had the courage that none of us had as chair people, and you can come up with all kinds of reasons why we couldn't do it when we were sitting up there in that spot. But Jim not only did it, he brought everybody along, and that was no small task. Now, I'm sure he would agree that he didn't do it on his own, and we all worked together on this. But his leadership meant a whole hell of a lot during that process. And so, I'm going to be relying on Jim and talking to Jim a lot going forward over the next month and a half of what I can do in my remaining time here on the board to do whatever we can to set the county. My commitment is still to my residents in Grand Ledge and to the residents of Eaton County to do whatever I can do to put the next board in the best position going forward. And so I think that this approach makes sense, and I appreciate it, and I know we're all a little chippy this morning, and I think everybody can appreciate that as well. So, but again, we can point fingers all day long as to why it didn't work. We should have done X, we should have done Y. But the point is we tried something that everybody in this room, everybody on this dais was in support of, and it didn't work. And so now it's Plan B time, and probably Plan C and Plan D, and try to figure it out. So, that's my commitment to the people of Eaton County and to this board. I'm here to help, and I appreciate everything you've done.
And I appreciate that, because we certainly don't want to tie the hands of the next board, but they're inexperienced, and they might, through Jim, they might appreciate some suggestions. And some of those suggestions are going to come from our department heads. The sheriff has already spoken about some plans he wants to be engaged in, and there are other possibilities, and we have to let that, the vote was 2 days ago, we really have to let, 3 days ago, we really have to let this ferment and develop a little bit, So by December 5th, we should have some ideas and possibly make some plans. And again, there's not a lot that we can do or we should do, right? We did what we could, and it didn't work. So the new board is going to have a heavy burden, but they're up for it. So some of the things we can talk about. I won't even go there, because I have ideas, you have ideas. We need to make sure that they're on the table and that we're able to make sure that they're realistic and things that actually can be accomplished. So,
Would it be possible, kind of the things that you listed off, to kind of be a motion of support from this body, just as the sheriff's going forward with the work he's doing, and then us gathering that document together for December 5th? Would that be agreeable for you?
a motion to what? To what?
Just in support that this body's directing and supportive of the groups mentioned, everything in your statement? No?
It's it's a pointless gesture, accomplishes nothing.
Okay.
Until everybody's willing to actually accept the hard truth of what our reality is, unless there's a significant change, most of what we're going to do for the next 2 months is going to be pointless gestures. We can't, and it's not a question of tying the next board's hands. We have no authority to tie their hands. We can allocate certain contracts. Health insurance is a perfect example. Commissioner Augustine asked if there was an out. We were told that there was. So things we do today will send a message. And either that message will be that we're going to put our heads in the sand and we're going to hope that everything will turn out just fine and everybody will be happy, or we're going to have to talk about things that are going to hurt. And there doesn't appear to be any real appetite today from a number of people who have spoken to me today to talk about things that will actually hurt. So unless we're willing to be honest about it,
Okay. We're going to talk about it on the 5th. And it's our sense that we'd like to have, we'll put a list together and each of us will give our inputs. And we'll have discussion items at that time, okay?
I would encourage the new commissioners coming on board to participate. I mean, to be here at least for those discussions. Obviously, you can't force them, but, you know, I know there's some new elected officials in this room. I encourage you guys to be here and be a part of it. I think it's crucial to get them onboarded as quickly as possible, so.
And we all were new commissioners, and you don't know what you don't know, and new commissioners have a lot to learn. And
It's a big jump to get into this seat in normal years. So with all of this going on, it's just that much more challenging. So we need to be able to support them as best we can, regardless.
we need to support them. So, okay, I think limited public comment. Hello, Darius.
Hello. Good morning. I'm Darius Raynette, Eaton County Treasurer-elect. First, I'd like to thank my supporters on my election. Next, I'd also like to thank Terrence Augustine, my challenger, for running a very clean and good campaign. There were some other county campaigns that we saw that, not taking sides, but weren't. And I was glad that I did not have to deal with that and I could just focus on getting my message out. As you know, I'm a 30-year retired state employee, and during that 30 years, Michigan did suffer quite a few economic downturns. And I remember several times when state employees, we had hardship and took pay cuts and other things, and it was tough times, grim times. So I look at the challenges that we have now with county employees with a lot of empathy. I understand 100% where they are and how they feel. I look forward to working with all the stakeholders, the Controller's Office, the County Commission, Finance Director, employees, and working with these groups. I'm happy to serve the county. And next week I'll be meeting with Treasurer Robinson to begin orientation, something that I appreciate that he's put together. And again, although it's a difficult time, challenging times, I am looking forward to this and I'm happy to serve Eaton County. Thank you.
Anyone else? You're adjourned. See you at the